I want to sort of start off and sort of understand, where you grew up. What was life like as a kid?
I had a pretty good life as a kid. I grew up in a kind of traditional Canadian middle class family. My dad was an entrepreneur in the lumber business, and I was always interested in the outdoors. I just loved hiking and camping, and so I gravitated to that from an early age, and I wanted a job at working in the outdoors all the time, so I became a geologist. And then after a few sessions at different universities, I started my first company right out of pretty much out of university, and it was called Beaty Geological, and I ran a little contract geology company and built that up, and then I started my first public company in 1985, which was called Equinox Resources, and then I've just had a whole stream of companies ever since then. My first company lasted 9 years, and I sold it to a big U.S. mining company and started a new one the next day, and there's just been a whole succession. I think I'm on number 15 now, so it's been a lot of fun and a lot of travel, which I love, and working with great people who have helped me build these companies. I was a good geologist, but I also found I was a good salesman, so I could sell shares and I could sell stories and part people from their money. And by a lot of good luck, as opposed to good management, we found gold mines and silver mines, and we built companies, and so they made more money than they gave me, and they returned the favor every time I started a new company. They backed me again and again. So it's been a happy and successful career, which I'm pretty much at the end of now. Equinox Gold will be my last company, and it's been a great run, a great journey, and a lot of tremendous amount of fun.
Right. Okay. Good summary. This could be either the shortest interview I've ever done, or we can go back. I want to get back to your childhood. Okay. So I'm fascinated because I've got 4 kids, right? And they each have different personalities, and I know who's probably going to do what. They've got very different desires and needs and personalities, right? So when you were growing up, your dad was an entrepreneur. You have had an entrepreneurial life. And so the question I'm asking is, what influence did your parents have on you, or your father have on you when you were growing up? Or did you feel it's inert in you? You were always going to be a salesman, as you put it.
Yeah, it's hard to say, really. I have 2 brothers, and I had a sister. She died when she was young. And my dad actually died when he was young. He died in 1973, I think. He died when he was 55 of a car accident. So I didn't, have anybody to bounce ideas off when I was in the business world. I would say I just got his genes, and we had a pretty lucky early life because I was given a tremendous amount of freedom. I was always a hyperactive little shit. I was always busy running around and constantly arguing with people and just so my mother's solution was to kick me outside and call me back when it came time for meals, and I've always been pretty active, I'm going to say, and pretty impatient and selfish and greedy and all those things that make great entrepreneurs. But I would say, I had 2 brothers. Neither of them became entrepreneurs. One's a great engineer, and he worked for a company through his life, and the other one was a printing salesman. So the apple didn't fall far from the tree in my case, but in their cases, they were just sort of living ordinary middle class lives. So that was my personality, I guess, was sufficiently different that's where I went. And I would say I made a lot of my own mistakes. I was I never had a mentor or a particular guiding light when I was building these companies. It was a school of hard knocks, and like I said, I made a lot of crazy mistakes, and in hindsight crazy, but at the time they all seemed very clever, and luckily there were more good decisions than bad decisions, and the outcome was positive for people.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you think your father would be proud of what you've done?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He will, of course. He would be very proud, and of course my mother would too. My mother always was. And of course mothers are proud of chainsaw massacre, chainsaw murders. So mothers are always proud of their children, whether they're thieves, rapists, and murderers. But fathers are a little tougher, and I know he would have been proud of me for sure. It's been a great career, and I think I'm very proud of having done it, without having to lie and cheat and steal and some of the short-term thinking that certain people in this industry have followed over the, the decades I've been involved with it, and it never usually works out very well. It's not hard to do things right. You do need luck, and I got luck, and with that luck, plus working very hard and being very driven and motivated, it worked out.
So
without any of those ingredients, it would have been harder.
Well, I'm intrigued in terms of what are the sum of the parts of the man, right? Because, a lot of people are watching this who will be looking for clues. They may be starting out like, we all once did, looking to sort of see, do they have the right characteristics and so forth. But so you're a workaholic, I think I just heard was one of the criteria there. Does that leave time for your family?
I didn't say that.
You're not workaholic? You work hard?
No.
No,
I'm not. No, I'm not. Especially when we had kids, I spent a huge amount of time on. For me, it was always about juggling. It was always about having 3 balls in the air at any point in time. One ball was my business, for sure. I wanted to make sure that was healthy and thriving. One ball was my family. I have 5 kids. I have 1 wife. We celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary in 10 days. And I have me. And as long as I'm happy, my family is doing well, and my company's doing well, it works. If any one of those balls drops, it's a disaster. So I spent a certain amount of time looking after the me and me. I really am driven to be an outdoor person. I love skiing and hiking and camping and canoeing and traveling, and I just love moving around. So I made sure there was that part of my life that I was getting a lot of personal fulfillment from. The businesses were all doing well. That required a lot of work, for sure, but it tended not to include work on the weekends or in the evenings, like a lot of true workaholics do. And it was very important that we had a strong family, and we've got a strong family. We always have had. I've got a wonderful wife, and it has worked out quite well for everybody, I'd say, in terms of that mix. I think if you lose one of those ingredients, though, everything else becomes more difficult. And so I wanted to try to make sure all those 3 pieces of the personal puzzle were healthy, and it's been a successful life.
Fantastic.
Because of that.
Nice balance. Well, let's get on and we'll stick with the work bit now. Okay. What type of manager are you?
A very decentralized manager. I like to work with smart people, and I really give them a lot of runway to do their own thing, and I just try to help manage them, and we make mutual decisions. I also try to be quite hands-on, though. I try to visit all the projects and try to have a complete technical understanding of what's going on, and so I can help really inform the decisions with personal experience. I've got to see things with my own eyes. I've got to touch the ground, go underground, for example, look at opportunities personally before I can really get a good sense of them. I can't do it from reading a book or a report or looking at something online.
Okay, and you talked about mistakes that you've made along the way, and I always say to people, you probably learn more from your mistakes than you do from the successes. So, what are the big moments you think, boy, I'm not going to do that again, or maybe I've now worked out what I should be doing?
Yeah, well, like I said, I am a quick study. I do learn quickly, and I when I realize I've made a terrible mistake, I try not to repeat it. Instead of that, I make other new mistakes. And and that's kind of what life's all about, right? It's just it's a one-way street. You don't really, every time you come around a corner, there's sort of a new situation that may or may not be something that you've experienced already, and the world changes, and so you can't always apply experience you've learned 30 years ago to what's going on today. It's a different world. We have different markets, different investors, different ways of looking at things, different social issues, all kinds of things that are different. So there's a few ingredients though that I have learned, and number one is work with nice people, good people, and if you can't get along with somebody, change. You've got to cut quickly. The quicker you cut, the happier you're going to be, and the happier they're going to be. Another is to focus on scale. Look for big projects, big opportunities, big ideas. I spent 3 years of my life trying to permit a 50,000 ounce total resource gold deposit in California back in the late 80s, and it was 3 wasted years. It was ridiculous what we tried to do. So those kind of things are just waste of time, waste of energy, and try to be opportunistic. In other words, set yourself up for things that are going to happen instead of things that are happening today. I've done that quite frequently in my career, and it's always been very successful, particularly trying to look at long-term commodity price trends that will eventually drive markets. I got into the gold business in the 80s. It worked out well. I got in the silver business in the 90s, the copper business in the 2000s. I went into renewable energy. In late 2008, I started a renewable energy company. Then I got back into gold in around 2015, 16, and that's been a pretty good run. So, I try to look at what's going to happen in future trends as opposed to what's happening today. The best opportunities are those that, where you're taking advantage of weakness elsewhere or markets that just seem to have it wrong. When I started a copper company in early 2000, a group of copper companies, nobody wanted to know the word copper. And that was when I was buying like a drunken fool, buying everything with copper in it I could find. And sure enough, copper went from an all-time low to an all-time high in just 4 or 5 years. And every one of those worthless copper deposits I bought became incredibly valuable. We sold them all for nearly $2 billion. So it's stepping back, it's reading a lot, it's traveling a lot, it's looking at what's going on in the world, what's going to go on in the world, and making a prediction, and then trying to set up a business that takes advantage of that trend, takes advantage of that. We live in very cyclical markets. Bull markets beget bull markets, bear markets beget bear markets. That's why we have these cycles. And so if you're in a bottom of a cycle, you want to be preparing for when the cycle turns and goes up. Those who prepare, who are lucky enough to have the capital to prepare themselves and get the assets that will do well in an upcycle, are going to benefit disproportionately. And vice versa. If you're at the top of the cycle, that's when you want to be selling. That's when you want to be turning to cash up to try to take advantage of when the cycle changes and it goes down again. These are multi-year events, but they always happen. They always will. We're in a down cycle today in many respects because of this COVID crisis. This is the time to be loading up on equities and buying things that other people have distressed and have to sell. That's just how these markets work. So that's worked very well for me, and I it's a kind of a basic thing. It sounds very easy to say. It's rather more difficult to do.